Other than Burkett? Okay, have a seat. So, let's look at some scenarios from the headlines of officers who didn't understand what you've learned and got in trouble with their internet postings. Can a bikini get you fired? Well, you all... Hey, what you do in your personal time, right? It all depends on who's wearing it. Here was the real life situation. You can't wait to see the picture, can you? Got their attention now. Okay. Imagine this scenario. None of these have I made up. There's not a single scenario or these that I've made up. I just got them off the internet because they make, the click. Once it's the click, it comes to people like me and everybody else in the community. Okay, one of you is a female deputy sheriff. Do you want to be that one, Bo Hatch? How about you, Vandalar? Will you be the female deputy sheriff? See, because he can empathize. Plus, he's very secure in himself. But he can empathize what it would be like to be a female deputy sheriff in a bikini-clad car wash. Okay, one of you is a female deputy sheriff. In your off-time duty, you participate in a charity bikini car wash, which I think is really smart. You think you're going to get more cars washed by good-looking dames in bikinis? Okay. If you did like a Speedo car wash of buff, chiseled hunks, I'm there. My car's really, really dirty. It needs to be washed 3 times. Okay. It's a fundraiser. It's marketed, well, this may have not shown such good judgment, but it's marketed as tits and tats. It includes employees from a topless strip club, which I just think is really, really cool. Come on, the strippers are volunteering their time, not charging for it, to raise money for, it was like, I think, a domestic violence place or a homeless shelter, family shelter, really good stuff, which I think is really cool of the strippers. The other of you is an off-duty male police officer who takes your private car to the fundraiser. You are so moved by the charity and the cause and feeling philanthropic, you decide to take your dirty patrol car there as well. And a photo of you and a photo of your patrol car. That's the actual photo, the actual patrol car, clad with bikini car washers, ends up on Facebook, and then ends up all over the community. Both the female deputy sheriff and the local police officer live in a small town of 7,000 people. Before I ask you what you think happens, this town is Moncks Corner, South Carolina. If you have not spent time in South Carolina, anybody spent time in South Carolina? Bible Belt. Bible thumping. Bible Belt. Not so much that you don't have a strip club, but, well, but those people, everything's separate, okay. So what do you think happens to the female deputy sheriff and the male police officer? What happens? I always get asked that. And is she married? Are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm calling your wife.
I just wanted to know if it was the male. I was just...
No. It's the female deputy sheriff. Okay. So what do you think happens, kids? Come on. What? What do you think happens? Who? Both? One, not the other? What? What do you think happens, Johnson?
She's fine, he's fired.
Yep.
She's fine, he's fired. What do you think, Jensen?
I'll say
she's fired, he's fired.
How many she's fired, the wanton sluttin' hussy? Okay, Salome, read that in the Bible. Salome with the 7 veils, and she takes the veils off. Okay, anyway. Okay, how many think the wanton hussy, is fired, and the red-blooded police officer with charitable bent is retained? Okay, how many think he's fired? She gets Volunteer of the Year award. Okay, here's what happens. No job action against the female deputy sheriff. And I'm doing this detached from any emotion. I totally agree legally. The sheriff's, everybody's being called to the carpet. I got to tell you, man, the ladies group from the Baptist church, everybody's calling everybody on the carpet. So we're all having to make nice with the public and stand in front of them and say, here's what's happening. And no job action against the deputy sheriff. The sheriff's office said she was involved in an event as a private citizen. It did not violate any laws. It did not violate any sheriff's office or county policies. There was no policy that said you can't wear a bikini and wash cars for charity. Okay? Police officer's out of a job. I don't know if he was fired, if he was allowed to resign, or if his mother said, shame on you, I cannot hold my head up anymore at Bible study. You have got to quit, and you got to move, and you got to change your name. I don't know what happened, but he's out of a job. Now, it's clear it's not protected speech, but I would love to take this case as a labor lawyer. I would love to take this case because under labor law, I don't want to get bogged down too much. I know no First Amendment protection, but there are policies and procedures. Remember the first thing, the Facebook thing where the National Labor Relations Board, your scenario 1 is patterned after a private employee scenario, the dick scumbag. And that's the one that got me interested in looking into this. And it was a private employee, and the National Labor Relations Board said you can't fire her because you don't have any policies and procedures on this. So she didn't violate any policies and procedures. So I would love to take this case because while it's not First Amendment protected, under labor law, they have to have violated some policy or procedure or done something that's wrong, that they should have known was wrong. Otherwise, you're sued for wrongful termination, and if they win, you get reinstated and they pay back wages. Yes? The National Labor Relations Board Act. The National Labor Relations Act does not apply to public employees. But there's labor law all the time. I mean, Troopergate. I mean, it's like, why wasn't they fired? Well, because the union rep said this, and if we went in front of a mediator and they haven't violated any known policy, it doesn't mean there's no labor law that applies to it. That the National Labor Relations Act and its provisions don't apply. Union is labor law. I don't mean specific statutes. I just mean the body of labor law, employer-employee relations. So what do you think the chief said the reason was for firing the police officer? Yes.
Management recruit would say using the car while on duty in an unofficial manner.
Police chief said, we got policies about take-home cruisers and allowing bikini-clad women to be photographed next to one. Violated those policies. And do you think the punishment would have been the same, that is, end the officer's career, if instead of this appearing on Facebook and getting out to the entire community, somebody had taken a Polaroid picture? Do you guys know what Polaroid pictures are? That means there are no negatives. Okay, so we got a Polaroid picture, no negatives. Somebody takes it and they hang it up in the police department's locker room. Do you think the officer would have gotten fired? No. No. So here's where they lose in the wrongful termination case. I put the police chief, and I expect the God-fearing Bible Belt police chief to not lie under oath. And I tell the police chief, here's what I do. I ask the police chief, so fired for violating patrol car. You want to be the chief? You can be the chief. Now, chief, you said my client, Officer Jensen, was fired for violating patrol car policies.
Former Officer Jensen.
Was violated for, not for long. Not for long. Okay, was fired for violating the policies that govern use of a patrol car off duty. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, and I'll remind you, you are under oath and penalty of perjury, but as you and I both know, sir, there is a bigger judgment day awaiting you.
Amen.
Amen, that's right. I will ask you, holding true to your oath and that judgment day that yet awaits you, if that picture had been a Polaroid picture taken by another officer or even Officer Jensen, and it showed up in the police department locker room, would you have fired him?
No, ma'am. I would have gave him a reprimand.
Yes, that's true, sir. So I think you still have saved yourself from the fires of hell and damnation, but not this wrongful termination lawsuit. Because what you have just said, sir, is he didn't violate the use of the patrol car. What you fired him for was the fact that ended up on Facebook. Yes, sir. Not for what he did with the patrol car, but that it ended up on Facebook and out in the community. Correct, sir?
What I meant
Correct,
to say,
sir?
what I meant to say
Correct,
was-
sir? You would not have fired him except for the fact it ended up on Facebook.
He still-
Correct,
he
sir?
still violated policy, ma'am.
No, sir.
Yes, he did.
Well, but you would not have fired him. You,
There's a difference between
sir,
a picture
don't, sir, just
and a
answer,
vehicle, ma'am.
sir, just answer my question. You did acknowledge under oath in the greater judgment day, you would not have fired him for what he did with the patrol car if it had only been on a Polaroid. You would have only reprimanded him. Correct, sir?
That is
That
what
is
I
correct.
said.
Thank you,
That
sir.
is what I said.
So, sir,
Yes, ma'am.
he was fired, not reprimanded, but fired,
Yes, ma'am.
because the picture ended up on Facebook and out in the community. Now my question is, sir, do you have any policies governing Facebook?
No, ma'am.
No.
But we do have policies governing
And then-
unofficial use of the vehicle.
Okay, but then that's all I need from you. Because it's great you have a policy on the use of the vehicle. You've said he wouldn't be fired. You cannot implement those policies in a discriminatory fashion, and you did. You fired him when another officer engaging in the same conduct with the patrol car that didn't end up on Facebook wouldn't have been fired. So you're applying, number one, you got to have policies, they violate. Number two, you cannot apply those, you cannot take discriminatory job action. So if you wouldn't have fired somebody doing the same thing, you would have only reprimanded. We're good to go with just a reprimand. You're going to get reinstated. You're going to get back wages. You're going to get back wages.
get on foot
And if
patrol.
you've been emotionally distressed by all of this,
He's
Punitive
not.
damage.
pain and suffering. Pain and suffering. Yes. Oh, now, why do you think the police chief quoted that policy?
Why did he quote the policy?
Why did he say this is he's getting fired because he violated this policy? Because he knows under labor law, you can't fire him. It's wrongful termination if he didn't violate any policies. So you got to come up with a policy. He had to go searching, and he found that one because he didn't have any social media policies. That's the lesson I'm teaching police leadership. You've got to have policies on this because people are getting fired not for the conduct, but because it ends up on the internet. And absent policies governing, unless you would have fired for the same conduct that was kept in-house and contained, Yes, he should have been reprimanded, but it wouldn't have been a career-ending thing. Then you're firing for the fact that it got on Facebook, and you have no policies about that. I don't know if I'd win, but I would take that case, and I wouldn't even ask for a retainer. I'd take it because I think I'm going to get my attorney's fees and then some. Yes?
At this point, ma'am, the chief or myself had to fire him because of the public outcry. Sure.
Well, that's fine, because it's the taxpayers that are going to be paying in the suit. So, what's your point? What's your point that the chief had to fire him? He's not going to win the wrongful. My point is my point. See, it's like you've become the chief. It's like you're channeling the chief. Let it go. You're not the chief. This is a scenario that we're supposed to learn from. So just go to your happy place, and let it go. You're not the chief had it. What does that have to do with anything? The lesson is chiefs. You need to start getting policies specific to the use of social media and Facebook. Because patrol car policies and conduct unbecoming aren't going to work unless you would have fired somebody for the exact same conduct under those policies, even if it hadn't made Facebook. That's what I'm telling them. Because they're not thinking either about the fact that once it gets out there, a lot of other interests come into play, like the whole friggin' community. And I say, Monk's Corner is nothing. It's 7,000 people out of 7 billion. Click World Wide Web. And we better start catching up and thinking about those things ahead of time and developing policies about that. Because that's what he's got. That's why he was fired. Because of the pressure on the chief, because it went out on the World Wide Web, and there are no policies governing that. Okay, let's look at a couple of other examples. What's that?
I just told him that he fired them, so he actually did appease the masses. You're the one that got him reinstated, so they're going to probably end up hating you because you got him reinstated.
I don't care. I don't live there.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I don't live. I don't care.
In the chief's eyes, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. They're not going to hold it against me. They expect me to be a snake. Okay. All right. Let's see. They weren't thinking. An Indiana state trooper bragged on his Facebook page about heavy drinking and posted photos of his banged-up patrol car with a comment, "Whoops, where did my front end go?" One of the most infamous, because it made national, at least, headlines, photo. The Indiana State Trooper is the guy here. There's a cup, lots of talk about beer. The guy holding a gun to his little bald head is a local police officer. Party time, party time. He also weighed in on his work. He referred to himself as a garbage man. Now, if an Indiana State Trooper is a garbage man, what does that make me, an Indiana citizen? Yeah. And he, just so there was no doubt, he said he picked up trash for a living. Commenting on an incident in Fresno, which is on the internet, right? Remember the New Orleans police officer, TV station, they have comments. So this Fresno incident where officers punched a homeless man during the arrest, and I got no problem with that. Homeless people can kill you, just like people like me, and 5' 1" dames can kill you. Just ask Corporal Spitzer. Don't just say, well, I can take her in a fight. Anybody in here can take me in a fight. Then you add what's in my purse, and I've drawn faster than you, and I've really kind of equaled. I've not equaled. I've tipped the scale, haven't I? Okay. So anyway, I don't have any argument about. I don't know what the Fresno incident is. I'm not passing any judgment or making complaints. But here's what he said about the Fresno incident that made online news, where officers punched a homeless man during his arrest. He posted, Let someone, homeless or not, try and stab me, he'll probably end up shot. Then he goes on, these people should have died when they were young anyway. I'm just doing them a favor. Clearly not protected speech. But get this, and this is where it's hurting the entire agencies. The major with the Indiana State Police, who was tasked with going out in front of the cameras, I don't envy him, but if that's his job, he said to the media, the Indiana State Trooper's biggest concern was the trooper may have been Facebooking on duty. Do you know how me, a member of the public, responds to the major who represents the entire troopers to a comment like that? This guy says killing homeless people in infancy is doing us all a favor, says he picks up trash for a living, and your biggest concern is he may have been Facebooking on duty, which I equate with making a personal phone call on duty. You're more concerned about that than the content of what he's saying? But why do you think the major said our main concern is he may have been Facebooking on duty? Yes, Bohedge. That's all they got to stand on to deal with this. Because they don't have any other kinds of policies specific to the conduct. So we want to address this, but we got to have a policy or we're going to have the Moncks Corner attorney coming here to Indiana and doing that whole cross-examination on the same thing. Because kids, have cops been talking like this to vent in bars with each other? Yeah. And we understand that, don't we? So they're not getting fired for what they're saying. They're getting fired because it ended up on the World Wide Web, and then that makes them ineffective in the community. It makes the department, could make the department come under public mistrust, suspicion, and it makes everybody's job more dangerous because you got a public that doesn't trust you and won't cooperate with you. So, the trooper resigned. The Metro Police Department officer was suspended. Asked what the trooper and officer could have been thinking. Now, I don't know where the major is anymore because now it's a sergeant spokesperson comes forward and says, would you read this, please? Recruit Freeble.
They weren't thinking. It was an error in judgment, so now there has to be accountability, and that's what we're doing.
And I agree with that. And then I say, where's the accountability of the Indiana State Troopers to have provided no training? To have just said, here, go use common sense. And not to have got people thinking. Now, however we may think this is felony stupid, we've got vice presidents of public relation firms committing these same mistakes. And I said to somebody in the break, and I'll say it to you, what I think is happening here, however stupid, we all will say that'll never happen to me, I'm not that stupid. Are you familiar with Colonel Dave Grossman? Dave is a fine, fine man. I'm proud to call him a friend. And I make him give me his books and autograph them, and I don't pay him any money. And then he says, well, what do you want me to put in the subscription, Val? To Val, who's been a mentor and taught me everything I know. And he writes it, and he does, which I haven't, of course. Great sense of humor, down-to-earth guy, really, really smart. Anyway, you know what he says about video games? By the time these shootings happen, those kids have played how many video games and done how many virtual killings? Tens of thousands. And he talks about how that desensitizes them in real life to the actual real life consequences. I think that's what happened to James Andrew, the vice president of the PR firm. He understands the tweet is out there, but he has he's gotten so used to, and all of these people have gotten so used to, blogging, posting, tweeting, that they've become desensitized. And especially, and you can imagine, you're in the privacy of your bedroom, in your PJs, with your personal laptop, on your lap, off duty. That seems very private, doesn't it? It seems very personal and very private. And you're expressing yourself. And you have been lulled, you've been you, the bigger you, rhetorical you, lulled and desensitized, because you've been doing that since you were an adolescent, now with people coming up. Not only new to the sensitivities of the job, or people that aren't new to the sensitivity jobs, experienced people. And you're not thinking in the privacy, the dark, cloaked privacy of your bedroom with your personal laptop, that when you hit click, where have you sent that? World Wide Web. And I think it's the only way I can explain people like the vice president of a PR firm is this desensitization thing of not thinking. Okay. And they weren't thinking, but neither are departments thinking. And there has to be accountability there as well. So, a couple of more examples. And this afternoon we're going to look at some videos that I think will display to you how your privacy and your safety and that of your family may be compromised, and you're not doing anything stupid. Okay. With friends like these, finish that saying, with friends like these, that's right. Anybody any country western fans recognize him? Who is that? It's three names. That's John Michael Montgomery. He's famous in country western circles. I love country western. I love all kinds of music except gangster rap and heavy metal. I like reggae because I like to work out to it. But anyway, John Michael Montgomery. Okay, so well known in country western circles, John Michael Montgomery, country western star. Less well known was Lexington, Kentucky officer Joshua Cromer, until he became roadkill on the information highway, and his story ended up headlines on the World Wide Web as well. He stopped Montgomery, and Montgomery ended up being arrested for and charged with not just DWI, but possessing a controlled drugs and 2 counts of CCW. So this was a DWI compounded by drugs and guns. Illegal. Friends, fellow cops, congratulated Cromer on his MySpace page, and they made fun of him by posting a Photoshop doctored photo portraying Cromer as an adoring fan of John Michael Montgomery. Complaints about Cromer's site, I don't know who complained. Country western fans, and I don't know who complained. I don't know if it was country western fans in the department. I don't know if it was citizens. I don't know how they got it. I don't know if his MySpace page was private. It doesn't really matter. Privacy protected doesn't mean it can't get out there. Complained to the brass. And that sparked the brass to check out other officers' MySpace pages. And what do you think they found? They say, well, this is on there. What else are we going to find on other officers' MySpace pages? What do you think they found? What?
Comments about themselves.
All kinds of bad stuff, like Nixon. Remember Officer Nixon? Remember the Indiana thing? Garbage, pick up trash for a living. They found a lot, not rare, not infrequent comments, derogatory and offensive about the citizenry in Hull, garbage, gays, mentally disabled, minorities, women, take your pick. Anybody that wasn't a white male cop, I guess. I don't know. And old people. Old people are okay as long as you're not gay, a minority, a woman, or homeless. And little kids. Cromer ended up being dismissed, and 5 of his MySpace friends were suspended. And what happened to Mr. Montgomery? And we can talk about whether that should have been fireable. It doesn't really matter, because if the community has lost trust in their police department, we have to take some kind of action to regain that trust, or we have increased officer danger and decreased officer safety for every officer in the department. Right, Chief? That's, I know. I understand. Although the bikini thing doesn't make me not think he won't respond to a call, especially if I'm a stripper. As a stripper, I feel so much safer in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. Okay. So what happened to Mr. Montgomery? Remember? Guns, drugs, and a DWI? He pled to just a DWI, and he paid $660 in fine and court costs. Gee, I'm just imagining, I'm just speculating. I didn't find this in any report, but I imagine his attorney's potential subpoena for the officer's MySpace pages might have had something to do with the deal. Just a guess. Okay, now there's more at stake here than just individual officer roadkill or even tarnishing a whole department with the distrust, and I've linked that to officer safety, but there's even more direct links than loss of public trust and cooperation. Yes?
You said somebody else posted that on his page and then he still got in trouble for that?
What happened is his friends congratulated him on his MySpace page, and they posted a doctored photo on his MySpace page that cast him as an adoring fan of John Michael Montgomery.
And he ended up getting in trouble for that?
That sparked an investigation of not only his, but other officers' MySpace page, in which they found other bad stuff. And he ended up getting, I don't know what was on his page other than that. There's only so much that newspaper reporters care to recount. I learned that as a trial attorney when I did some high-profile cases, and I'd read the newspaper and watch the 6 o'clock news, and I'd say, "Are you kidding? You're making it look like we had a bad day. That was a 60-second soundbite. We had a really plus day today in court. What about all the rest of it? What about the other 8 hours of evidence and testimony?" But so danger can be one click away. Imagine this situation. Imagine the stop of a suspected drunk driver turns into a gunfight. You stop a suspected drunk driver, it turns into a gunfight. You end up in a hospital with a serious bullet wound. The suspect flees and is later shot before being captured by SWAT. It turns out the suspect has been in jail numerous times before. He's also been in jail on murder charges, and he is a notorious gang banger. We're talking violent kind of guy. He's sent to the same hospital that you are in. The chief, who's been doing critical incident command throughout, hours of critical incident command, quickly and wisely decides not to identify you or reveal the location where you are. Why do you think that's smart? But why? Say something specific. Not the guy. He's the gang member. You don't think these gangbang members would like to bring flowers to the officer who's the only witness to the traffic stop and deliver some flowers to him? Yeah. And you can post guard. We've watched enough Hollywood to know you can post a guard outside the hospital room, and they can still